This is where we fly stunt guys. We could make them go across like on wires.
The movie feels so big in scope.
So great.
It's crazy to think that it was all filmed
shot here.
It's so
Have you seen
crazy.
this?
I haven't taken the tour yet.
You're not
I'm
gonna
the
believe it. That's what makes it kind of exciting. If you're a film buff, you'll like that about it, that it's about filmmaking in a way. This is what we do as filmmakers. When we see on set, I'll tell you, we're talking here, but we see, oh, there's a camera guy there, there's a guy there monitoring sound, and we're here pretending like they're not there.
Kier Gomes with Joe Blow. We're here in Austin, Texas at Troublemaker Studios with Robert Rodriguez and Sons. This is Troublemaker Studios in Austin, Texas, home to one of the most famous film directors of all time, Robert Rodriguez. How are you guys doing?
Great, how you doing?
This gigantic plot of land stands as a one-stop shop for Rodriguez and his family to make their movies. Hell, I even got to walk the scrapyard from Iron City and Alita Battle Angel. And, I don't want to brag, but I met Alita herself. This place has thousands of iconic props used in movies that we've seen, from Sin City, Spy Kids, From Dusk Till Dawn, and so many more. It comes complete with its own costume department, as well as special effects and VFX department, and an ADR booth, and a room to compose music in. Not to mention an on-site movie theater, which I got to see Hypnotic in last night.
You're perfectly normal.
How are you guys doing?
Great, how you doing?
Awesome.
So, I got to see Hypnotic last night here in the studio.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed it. I love the Hitchcockian kind of, the very twisty, I guess is a good way to put it. Yeah. You mentioned last night when you were introducing the film that this was something you had kind of conceived during Spy Kids 2, right? When you were editing Spy Kids 2.
20 years ago, yeah.
So being, I guess over 20 years in the making, did you kind of know where you wanted it to start and where you wanted it to end and everything in between? Or was it kind of I'm going to start with this idea I have about a man who never gets caught and then kind of see where the story takes me?
I had a lot of this key sequences, the bank, some big set pieces, a couple of set pieces that didn't make it that I really loved, that just didn't fit the story later, as we crafted the story later. But the scissor scene was still in it. Things like some of the big set pieces, and then some of the ideas of a character who was just so driven. He didn't need to be hypnotic. You just tell you, sit your ass down. You would sit down.
Yeah.
So that he was kind of like hypnotic because he was so driven. And then there's people who have an ability to convince people to do things. But the big twist at the end, I always had a big twist, but then there's this, extra twist that I didn't come up with till like 2015. I had to kind of be alive a little bit longer. Had more, a different kind of an ending. And then as I lived, I said, oh, you know what? I want this ending to happen. I want a different ending. I want a different feel. So I changed, came up with some extra things.
Think I'm ready for duty?
Do you feel ready?
I think it's the only thing keeping me sane.
I want to say how much I love that too, because you get an ending and then you get that little extra ending, and it completely changes things.
Yeah, every twist gets to change things. We don't usually get to do like a triple backflip.
Yeah, it was very, there were so many levels to it, which I really, really appreciated. What was it like, you guys working together? I know that this is not the first time you've worked together, but what was it like creating this as a family?
Yeah, well, that had a lot to do with it too, just the whole family aspect of it. We really wanted that to shine through. But,
exactly.
What did you all think of the process?
Yeah, it's such a crazy process, being 5 years old when he first wrote this 20-some years ago.
Wow.
And hearing whispers of it throughout the years, because he'd always tell us whispers of the projects, and we go, yeah, that's a cool idea. And then go through the years to where it becomes, now we're working together as adults, and he's like, hey, remember that movie Hypnotic? Yeah. Hands a script in your hand, go, could you help me with some notes on this? Let's figure it out together because we're going to shoot it. Wow, no way. And he hadn't even started composing it at this point. A few more years passed, like, hey, you're gonna compose the score.
Yeah.
Let's go over the script so we can figure out the musical scenes.
But yeah, no, it's like, it was so mythical by that point. So when they came to me and were like, hey, we're actually making it happen, it was like, oh my God, really? Like, what's it about? Can I read it? It was like because all you had to do was a word. It's got a great, it's a great title, Hypnotic. It's like, what does that mean? And he'd tell us ideas over the years, but yeah, it really just stuck with me as a kid. And so when it was finally coming to life, it just felt like, I don't know, the myth was born. And so we were all very passionate about it, very excited to do it.
I love that. I absolutely, and I think it shows too, because everything is so cohesive in this movie. It does have a very Hitchcock flavor. The score, incredible. Yeah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that You learned music theory off of YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes. So I was very much
That
self-taught.
should inspire everyone out there, because I was composing forever and I never knew music theory.
Like, Father,
Because
this
I
is
said,
a true rebel without a crew
How did you learn
here.
it? And he said, through YouTube. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so incredible what you can do with it now. I mean, I love that there's, you can go listen to music on there, Spotify and all that stuff. There's streaming. I mean, there's so many ways to listen to scores that are way before your time, and now all the newer stuff. I mean, it's such an incredible teaching tool in that regard, and there's so many great, knowledgeable people out there that it's just, if you've got the passion for it, you can really go out and just kind of learn this stuff and figure it out. So
Totally.
it was really cool.
That's amazing. And Robert, for you, the movie feels so big in scope.
Oh, great.
It's crazy to think that it was all filmed
shot here.
It's so
Have you seen
crazy.
this-
I haven't taken the tour yet.
You're not
in the
gonna
next
believe it.
group. I cannot wait. I'm so
Even the
excited.
border crossing was right out front.
What's the call?
I'm calling to report a bank robbery.
Is this crime currently in progress?
Today.
See that guy on the bench?
Do you have a lighter?
That guy's up to something. It's very hot today. It's like a furnace.
The idea in your head must have been huge, because the scope of the movie, the scope of the story seems big and yet so intimate. What was it like kind of having to work on a shorter shooting schedule, kind of having to guerrilla filmmake your way through this thing? What was that
It
like?
was so fun. Ends up being, I wanted to make it in the Hitchcock style. I ended up becoming very, very particularly towards Psycho, because that was where he was tired of the bloated movies and he wanted to go do something really fast and loose with his TV crew, and just crank that thing out. So it ended up being more like how he shot Psycho. But my thing was always been to shoot sort of mid-range budget movies, but just have really big ideas in them, so that the idea was bigger than the budget that you had, so that it could be scalable. If you're blessed with a huge budget, it still works because the idea is big. If you have a low budget, the idea is still big. So it'll feel like a big movie, even though you're using $2 tricks most of the time to show, like, you're not really sitting in that seat. Edit, oh, you're in the other office. It's like that. It's like that simple. But it blows people's minds because the idea is so big, and the idea is reverberating in their head. So that's kind of a Hitchcock, very sleight of hand kind of thing that I love. That's very Rebel Without a Crew. Rebel Without a Crew is about how to make mariachi, which was made with popsicle sticks and rubber bands. It's really the idea that's propelling that thing forward, not the budget, not the shots, So I realized the power of the idea, which you would love to know goes back to just you with a pen. Drawing out an idea is the most powerful thing you can have. So many people are focused back then on budget. Oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have the right camera. They're thinking about process instead of what's the big idea that's going to get people excited. So it helps you focus more on that, because you don't have a production anymore. COVID just shut most of that down. It helps you actually focus more on what you're putting in front of the camera. That's why I brought back in an old scene from this. I gave him the old scripts to read, the old versions that I originally wrote, and he said, you should bring this scissors scene back. The scissors scene is really cool. And it's like, it's true. It's because it's all sleight of hand. It's like, right, action, the scissors are in your hand. Wait, cut. Okay, now the scissors aren't in your hand. It'll make sense in the editing.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we doing?
It almost has like that, when you explain it like that, almost has like that backyard filmmaking.
Yeah, it's total backyard
feel to it,
filmmaking. I mean, that's why I was able to edit it that night, show them the next morning with music and everything, and they were just like, oh, okay, this is what we're making. That's cool.
That's
wow.
cool. It really brings it back to that El Mariachi kind of thing of when, there's no money left on the table. The only production value you can really bring to elevate it is creativity, the ideas, how you solve things, all that kind of stuff. So it's like the shorter the shooting days got, the more passionate and like crazy the project got. It really, really came to life.
And the actors are just way into it. Ben was great. He was way into shooting fast and loose. William Fichtner just loved being Del Rey, and he was just like, I just love this.
I could tell by watching him.
And he's just like, I don't have to say anything. I just have to stand there and just send it out. Yeah. You're doing the rest, right? And I would show it to him. He's like, I don't usually like looking at myself, but I like looking at this. This is cool.
Man,
intense.
He's hypnotic, He's like, pulls you in.
Yeah.
I mean, he affected the music so much, because I see the scenes and it's like, oh, he's like a whole different feeling, and the whole tone shifts when you look at this guy, and it's like, that really, I got to be able to write to that, and that, all his whole themes and stuff really came from that.
That's amazing. Was that something that, I'm sure, I don't know if he had any input on that, but was that something that he was proud of or excited about?
I mean, when we watched it, we had the screening at South by, and he got to see it. He was like, "Man, that was really great." And I just told him, I mean, writing for you was like, that really was the inspiration. Was just, I mean, he brought so much to it.
Yeah, I think later when he saw the footage all cut together and saw just how powerful he was, he just knew that character needed to have a theme of some way, and it was very thematic, and something that triggered something every time you would see him or feel that he was around, so that you knew what the stakes were. And
I mean, the moment we were getting scenes of it, we were already talking about that. Like, look, he just needs like something, he comes on screen, it's got to shift. And so that.
And it does. It's awesome. Yeah.
So, it's like a furnace.
There's a safe deposit box.
Is that the target?
Box 23.
Not away from Hypnotic, but just to kind of talk more about your entire career. I'm a huge fan of your movies.
Oh, thank you.
The Faculty is a personal favorite film of mine.
Right.
Man, I love that movie very much.
I love that it gets some love now. It didn't back in the day.
But it always has deserved it. I'm glad that it's finally getting out
Well, I
there.
think I know why. Is because of the title. And I told the studio, you can't call a movie The Faculty if you're trying to lure a young audience. There was a movie with Nick Nolte when I was in high school called Teachers. I was like, what kid's going to want to go see a movie about teachers? It's like, you want to get far away from these guys. So I don't care. And all the trailers are you're trying to sell this red herring that the teachers are the bad guys, and kids could care freaking less. So people had discovered it later, and then,
Once we were members of the Faculty ourselves, we started.
Well, I had a different title. I called it, I refused to call it The Faculty. I told them, I'm going to force you guys to call it something else. So every time we clap the clapboard, it's going to say Untitled until you guys come up with a better title. Because if you call it that, it's going to be death. Wow. And so I came up with my own titles. I knew they wouldn't come up with titles. And my favorite one, which of course it's not going to sound right because you're so used to The Faculty.
Sure.
But in the day, Faculty sounded so wrong to me. It was The Others. And they said, because it was kind of outsider and type thing, and they said, no, we're just going to make it The Faculty. And then they stole it and used The Others on another movie of theirs that didn't have a title.
Yeah, with Nicole Kidman, yeah, wow.
But yeah, I think that title got in the way for a lot of people who didn't see it initially, but then saw it later and liked the movie. The movie sold itself. So I love hearing that people like that movie.
It's fantastic.
So we had a lot of
movie.
fun. That was my first movie shot in Austin.
Oh, really?
Before Spy Kids, yeah. Because Desperado, Dust Till Dawn were all shot somewhere else.
Wow, okay.
And Mariachi was shot in Mexico.
Yeah, of course.
So that was the first time I wrangled a crew together to get them ready for Spy Kids and try this visual effects company that I was going to use on Spy Kids. Faculty only had 50 effect shots, and that was kind of our learning tool before doing Spy Kids.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Now, when it comes to casting, I mean, you've worked with some of the best actors in the world. For Hypnotic, what made Ben the right person for the role for you?
Well, first it turned into something else later, but at first it was just I needed a star. I needed a big star because that's what Hitchcock would do. He'd get Cary Grant, he'd get Jimmy Stewart, he'd get Sean Connery, he would cast stars. So it needed to be a star-driven piece. And he signed on, and we're both from the 90s. We're both, from that indie spirit thing. So he was into the whole indie thing. He was a father. His intensity, which would be great because that character has to be so driven and so pushable that he doesn't even need a hypnotic ability. You just say, sit your ass down, and you would sit down.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, I'll do what you say. So I needed that. That was always part of the character, was that he felt like a hypnotic because he just was so driven and people would just move out of his way.
Sure.
No mind tricks needed, he was just that tenacious. But yet he had to have the warmth of a father and be a husband, and Ben is that. He's always talking about his kids. He's always like, well, I can't this weekend because, spend time with my kids. I was like, man, that's a plus. That's a plus for this character.
Perfect.
But then when the movie just kept getting shut down because of COVID and we ended up with a shorter and shorter schedule, he was the man because he was from that background, shooting fast and loose. He remembers what that was like and really embraced it and loved how fast we were able to shoot it and the energy. He knew what the energy would be, something we couldn't replace on a longer movie where you're sitting around in a trailer waiting for shots to be lit. We had to just move. That's why I brought a co-DP on, but that's why I'd stay being a DP, because it's like, yeah, this is really pretty lighting, but we're shooting, roll. We're not tweaking any more stuff. We gotta move. We got 50 more of these we gotta get by the end of the day. And you have actors that can do that, that's the best.
Hands up! But I'm the wrong man. Where is she?
In the case of this film, I think Ben almost seems more in his element than when you see him in a bigger studio movie, you know, because he's kind of using himself as his tool, you know. Everything from his voice was a little bit more gruff, a little different. I really liked that. The way he walked, you know, it was very he was a very physical presence. I'm curious, when you were writing the movie, did you guys kind of know, was that like, this is for Ben, or is that like, you know, we just need someone who can do these things, meet these qualities?
Well, we got him pretty quick.
Name for it, yeah.
We got him like in 2017, 2018. We got him signed on. So he was already on maybe from 2018, 2019. So we already knew it was going to be him as we wrote the later stages. But early on, the model was Mickey Rourke. That's why it's called Rourke.
Yeah.
It's spelled like Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, it is spelled
It was like Mickey Rourke, not Mickey Rourke to be in the movie, but Mickey Rourke as I remembered him, like an Angel Heart.
Sure.
You know, that kind of really charming, kind of really cool, driven detective. I just thought that was the model, with somebody like that, that's a real leading man, that's a star. So whenever I made this movie, I'd want to find the next like Mickey Rourke type guy. And that I always meant to change the name, and then it just kind of stuck. Rourke, it was, but everybody always wrote for Mickey Rourke back then because they just remember him in the 80s and the 90s. And I'd already worked with him on Once Upon a Time in Mexico, but it was more that idea of like that kind of guy that's just very magnetic, and that you could just follow on a journey through a rabbit hole of twists and turns, and always have this human element that you can relate to. So he still has a very everyman feel, like a Jimmy Stewart would in a Hitchcock movie, or a Cary Grant. He played like everyman in North by Northwest. Just that someone you could say, okay, that's me. I'm the eyes through the movie, this very upside down world.
I know you called the tip in on the bank heist. Who the hell are you?
What makes total strangers pull off an elaborate bank heist? Are you familiar with the concept of hypnotics?
Hypnotics.
What is something that you would tell somebody who's on the fence about seeing Hypnotic? What's something that you would want them to know before going into it?
I mean, it's a twisty, turny thrill ride in the Hitchcock sense that it shows you things that you haven't seen before in a new way. So if you like being surprised, don't find out what it's about. Just go see it, and you'll be surprised. You'll definitely be surprised if you haven't listened to any spoilers or anything. It's a movie about someone who's just completely uncatchable, a driven detective trying to solve a series of bank robberies that this person may or may not have been involved in the disappearance of his daughter. And he has to loop some other people like Alicia Braga in to help him solve it, and nothing is as it seems.
Nothing is as it seems in this whole movie. I was so surprised the entire time. Well, again, I really loved the movie. I think that part of the allure for me, and I think what's gonna be part of the allure for a lot of people, is there's a specific. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a specific sequence in the film where we take the first scene of the film and kind of show it to you again a little differently.
Right.
What was it like filming that? It felt like there was a lot of. I know you mentioned there's a lot of $2 tricks. What was it like, kind of making that, because it's a turning point in the movie. It's where the curtain's being pulled back. It looked like watching people make a movie out of the context of making a movie. It's hard to explain, but it felt like it was a filmmaking lesson or a look behind the curtain. What was it like on that day filming that?
Oh, we were just laughing because knowing how things were going to intercut with a $2 trick was going to be so fun, because it's like, this is what we do as filmmakers. What we see on set all day. We're talking here, but we see, there's a camera guy there, there's a guy there monitoring sound, and we're here pretending like they're not there. I like that aspect of the movie, that it's what we do as storytellers. It's what we do as filmmakers. And what audience does to themselves. They'll buy a ticket to go on purpose and sit in a dark theater and have a hypnotic construct put around them long enough. Filmmaker has to be manipulative enough to make them believe that all these actors they know are actors, are saying dialogue they know was written. Take them on a journey where they believe it long enough to be emotionally involved, either cry or laugh or get scared or cheer at the end. And they do it for the spell of that movie. And when you pull back the curtain and see the sets and see the props, that's all very exciting for people. So doing the movie was very much like that. That's what we do. We're trying to, it's very meta that it's happening within.
Totally.
But it's really, that's what makes it kind of exciting. If you're a film buff, you'll like that about it, that it's about filmmaking in a way, and what we do to each other with stories, and try to put people there to get them to empathize and believe what they're seeing is real. And so that's what's fun about it.
Hypnotics have the ability to influence the brain, sound, voice,
Need a light?
blocking eyes. Hypnotics use them to make you see a version of the world that doesn't exist.